All right. Well, welcome everyone. We'll wait a few more minutes just to make sure everyone's coming in. Sylvia, you did a great job with the talks earlier this week. A lot of the comments were how well you moderated that discussion.
Oh, thank you. It's at Michael again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to see everyone. There's more talks in the space coming in the next couple of weeks, but they're probably more research oriented.
Yeah,
feel free to join.
Which is good for our university, actually. We shared particularly Mel Slater's talk, I guess, the day before. Because we have every 2 weeks we're trying to bring other researchers who are not associated with our XR lab into discussions of our lab. And we seem to have the best traction with the psychiatry and psychology departments, respectively.
Right. Yeah.
So they're very much into embodiment, among other things. So we shared those video links. We got some pretty good feedback. So definitely, I think we'll be following the upcoming talks you'll be organizing.
Cool. Yeah, Monday will be Anthony Steed about the sort of system level of things. He's been doing like network VR for a very long time. And Wednesday is Doug Bowman, who is like an expert in 3D interaction. And on Thursday is me, which I haven't prepared. Right. So.
Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, the introduction that was given to him, and then his own discussions. I wasn't familiar with his work, but I focus on collaboration. So his area is something.
Collaborative VR. Yeah, collaborative VR is pretty much, but he's very much from a technical perspective, like the network level, and a bit of social sort of layer on top as well in more recent years. But he's basically, the IEEE VR conference is pretty much, one of the key persons in the past, 20 years for that conference.
Yeah. So how today's going to start, we'll have a brief presentation of the Go East festival that was just held. So Georgie will open us up with that in a few minutes, and just run through what that experience was like, and what they learned from it. And then what I'd like to do before we get into the platform presentations is to kind of have an open discussion with the participants about the platforms we've tried and what we think of them critically. The survey that I shared earlier this week and that many of you have filled out, which I thank you for, has expressed that people want to collaborate a bit more, maybe understand what other people are in the community are looking to do and what they think about these experiences. So I'd like to run about maybe a 20-30 minute open discussion, debating what we think about these platforms. Some of us have tried all of them. Some of us have only tried a handful of them. And of course, we all have different use cases. But do that, and then we'll go with Lance and with Tim, introducing what they're going to be showing us more hands-on and in-depth in the platforms this evening. So just to summarize, Tim will be presenting Mozilla Hubs, kind of holistically why you would choose to use Mozilla Hubs, what you should be considering and thinking of, and what it offers. And then Lance will be leading us through the really powerful creative and collaborative tools that Rec Room is featuring, and doing so not really from a gaming perspective, but from, again, a broader creative perspective, because there's a lot that you can do in a platform like that. So I think we can go ahead and get started. There's more people obviously will be coming in, but Georgie, I'd like to introduce you if you are ready to take us through Go East.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm trying to follow some of the Zero events in the past, because when our Go East Film Festival, which usually happens in Wiesbaden, Germany, it should have happened last week. Usually, when the pandemic situation started to happen, we had two solutions basically as most of the festival: either just to give the works to the jury and evaluate them and give a prize to a prize winner, or to do something online to keep the spirit alive. And Go East Film Festival is a festival of Central and Eastern European films, and I'm curating VR awards for VR and interactive awards. We nominate eight projects, both 360 and interactive, and the winner received a 5,000 euro award. We also have an exposition in Frankfurt at Film Museum, Wiesbaden Film Museum, just museum. And yeah, usually it's quite a lot of fun for those creators, and they have a chance to show their works to quite a wide audience who comes in Frankfurt. So this time when we had the situation, we've decided to change the possibilities for ourselves and kind of widen our scope. We invited to the jury every team. She's an Oculus Facebook VR producer who is responsible for also evaluating all non-gaming projects. Maria Ruksanova from Raindance and Lifeport, HTC Lifeport, and Akmurat Tuliyev, Turkmenistan actually born producer who is now working for PBS POV in United States for POV Spark, the digital interactive branch. And then we were through your events also been watching what platforms could be used to create some kind of online events. We wanted to present our projects, we wanted to collaborate.
Georgie, sorry to interrupt. Your microphone, sometimes it's fine, and then sometimes it gets a little harder to hear clearly.
Yeah, let me just jump to the laptop's microphone. So what I'm saying is that we had a really nice jury panel who've been able to evaluate the works, and this jury actually was much wider from the scope of whom we traditionally invite for the festival. But then that was a question of the platform which to use, and we explored some of them. We started to negotiate, but we figured out that with the idea I really wanted as a creative curator to bring in, to recreate the spaces which we physically would have visited in Wiesbaden, we have to go with the solutions which is possible to integrate in this short term. We had 5 weeks around. So we approached Louis from Vroom and used VR chat for that. I've invited my friend, XR artist, who usually creates his works in Oculus Quill or Tilt Brush. And we've recreated Caligari Film Buchne, the film theater in Wiesbaden, almost 100-year-old, in Oculus Quill style. We used their screen to show the presentations, to do live streams, and to create an award ceremony inside of it. We also would draw the statue, and we actually conducted our award ceremony inside the VR. But also we had lots of visitors who've been visiting us over the week of the festival to watch 360 films. We basically did that with a 360 booth, and we created 2D live streams from inside VR chat, making interviews with people, visiting in groups, screenings of 360 film, lowering the volume of the world, and that's giving the directors opportunity to show around how he shot the film. So let me just share my 2-minute video about it quickly. I'm not sure how.
Like, there is an abandoned village.
Jesus, where did that thing come from?
I don't know. I think the Kitty became the Muslims. Oh, what is going on with the glasses? Oh.
So as you see, one of the things we also did, we created custom avatars branded with the festival logos, and we had a message behind it that we wanted to change the stereotypes about Eastern European people. So we make a cross-dresser. Women are dressed like criminals, and men is dressed in an old flowery dress. And we had a special excursion. So this is an excursion with a guided tour with an XR artist from California, from United States. And then we had a ceremony.
From the 3 of us goes to Bobby VR, the 2020 jury for Film Frame Board, to Whispers VR team.
So yeah, that was really powerful moment when all of our participants and the jury who came to the ceremony. It was a private event. We wanted to record it from several angles to integrate to the next day closing ceremony. And we really felt this thing that we didn't. Let me stop sharing. We didn't actually we didn't give information for the winners who's gonna receive an award. So they've been all there, and we did this unexpected thing for them. So Jacek from the Whispersphere, didn't expect it. He really went on stage. He was on a headset. He received this award, and you have this feeling of reality when you're inside of such an emotional event, when you're recreating something artistically, even with all the problems which VR chat has, like huge amount of problems, people getting into different iteration of the same world, people hear too much of something, not too much of something, but still with the creative work around this place, you just receive the right tool to create emotional feeling of being together. So we danced later on for the collective group photo, and it was really, I can say that people were impressed. The Oculus team were impressed, HTC people was impressed, and we were invited a huge amount of people who usually would never actually hear about Ghost Film Festival, but they visited our venue, they learned about the project, and from the local regional festival in Germany about some Central and Eastern European people, we had a wider scope, people knowing about basically the project. So that I would say our creators benefit much more from the pandemic now than they had with the festival. So that's basically my use case. It took us basically 2-3 weeks to design the rooms. Then Lewis's guys, developers, they put it in Unity. We had a lot of glitches, but then it worked, and we are keeping this world as kind of a museum, kind of retrospective worlds in Vroom. So if you go to VR chat to Vroom, you will see a portal to those two rooms, to Rooftop and our Caligari, just to see how it works. And the last thing I can tell that I think that integrating Quill to VR chat is not easy, but it was a fast solution. It really worked, and it looked artistically. So I think it's really, it was a way how to avoid huge amount of costs to create a collective event made with your own design without a need to code a lot and put a lot of 3D assets.
Okay. Well, thank you, Georgi. Before we continue, and I think this was good that we started with your use case, because we want to be discussing these platforms and their merits, their strengths and weaknesses in the context of specific use cases. But are there any questions for Georgi about the festival, how they put it together, or any challenges and such? All right. If not, then let's move on
How big was the team? How large was the team?
Yeah, we have from our festival side, we had a team of 4 people, like XR artist, technical producer, me as a curator, and festival management producer. And on Lewis's side, it was 3 developers and Louis himself who've been doing it. And I forgot to mention that Louis managed to put all our interactive and 360 films on Viveport on the developers channel. So people could sign up and watch the whole lineup, which was unprecedented in our case. We didn't put one word because it wasn't allowed. We tried our best to put it, but basically all who wanted to watch the whole lineup, both interactive and 360, they could just sign up for being developers of Vroom in Viveport and had an access to it. So thus we gave an access to not only to 360 films like Tribeca or something, but something. And there is, I say, a question now, the recording of the ceremony, did it work out? Yes, the ceremony in reality was around 45 minutes. I've cut it to 5 minutes and provided it to the festival team, and they live streamed it, kind of our record, the next day. So it worked perfectly from the traditional like Zoom kind of closing ceremony, which was made online. Our really stand out. And it looked like we are crazy people and we are doing really funny things, unlike all other festivals.
Okay. Any other questions for Georgi? Okay. Then let's start. And so this is going to be something semi-structured, because we have a mixed group of people here with different experiences and different interests. and motivations for following these platform explorations. Some of you don't always have headsets available to you to jump into them, but I'd still like to hear everyone's opinion if you have them to share. From our experiences, what platform and use case seemed the best fit to you? What have you seen where you felt like that specific case, whether it's a conference or it's a business meeting or it's a classroom session or it's a workshop, which platform has surprised you or has convinced you that that platform is a really good, strong fit for a particular use case? And I'm curious to see if anyone has such a match. Maybe Lance or Sylvia.
Can I say something? Yes. So I have been. So we have our students, MA and MSc in VR and AR students. Basically, just went back to their home country. So we had actually so far we only had one session. Basically, we're meeting the students, and the platform we chose was Outspace, because I think that one so far is the most user friendly one, I feel. And also you can, like, if you don't have VR equipment, I mean, it works great with Quest and everything, but if you don't have VR, I think you can join with desktop as well. I don't know. I haven't really looked at that, but, I believe that's the case. Now, I just felt like, the actually sort of setting up an avatar and actually going in, and the fact that you actually they force you to kind of go through this small tutorial, which makes actually afterwards the experience is actually quite smooth compared to some other things. Are not kind of less technical glitches. There's still a lot, but I feel this is the kind of most smooth experience so far. But I think also because Outspace has existed for quite a long time, I think they're not like, I think they existed for like 5 years or even more than that, something. So it's like it's really sort of, they have quite lots of things worked out, and I think they have quite sort of strict rules in what kind of features you can add or not. And they want to make sure whatever device you use going to that place is going to work. And for us, I also tried Mozilla Hubs for a big sort of the HLP VR conference. And for me, it doesn't work for the Quest. Like, as in, if I'm in a room with 2 other people, that's fine. But as soon as we have more than 10 people there, the Quest is really having problem rendering it. But with Outspace, it really didn't matter. I was in meetings with 20, 30 people, and it was all great. And I think for presentations or at least for education purpose, and also I was meeting my colleagues as well, having a discussion. And in Outspace, you can quite easily sort of change, like, whether you want your voice to be like spatialized or not, so that you can either have breakout groups or just have the megaphone on so I can speak to everybody. I thought I kind of got a hand of it quite quickly compared to some other platforms. I advocate for Outspace basically so far. Yeah.
Outspace and education. Lance, did you have anything? I thought you started to say something.
No, but I can about Outspace. I would agree with Sylvia that it is ideal as an event space. They've heavily supported that with their online presence and also how they deal with moderation. So if you are a member of their Discord, you can just announce that you have an event and you would like someone there to make sure it works smoothly. So they do offer a lot of help. They consistently have very good events, whether they are like talk shows or interviews. But they can just as easily be meeting spaces if you have a privately held event. For events of any sort, I would direct people to Outspace. The only downside is kind of the lack of reliability when your crowd gets too big if you're holding an event. I've had issues with sharing video files with larger crowds. So this can happen as well. But as long as there's no media sharing, you should have very few problems in Outspace. I second that.
Yeah, and also, it's another thing. I found it actually quite difficult to do presentations in Outspace inside VR. I used the slide deck.
Yes, very much.
You would imagine it's an easy thing, right? And for some reason, they made it unnecessarily difficult. And I can't control the slides on my phone. But the thing is, my phone just locked itself, and then face recognition doesn't work when I have the VR headset on. I have to. It's like the most awkward experience.
Yeah.
But I think the easiest is to actually have the presentation on desktop. But I don't have a Windows machine, and because ArtSpace is now bought by Microsoft, it's not their priority to have it work on Mac. So I really struggled with that. And I just I think playing video on its own is quite a technical challenge. So I can understand why ArtSpace might not handle that quite well. But I think there is one of the platform, big screen, is kind of designed for that. So yeah, just one comment I want to add.
Yeah.
Oh, for big screen?
Yeah, big screen. It's like basically a place you go to watch movies or share whatever thing. Is it?
So small. Yeah, the groups are so small.
They use a different. So for clarity about the way Big Screen and AltSpace, the way they differ is that I think an Engage uses a similar method to AltSpace is that they start running. I think you either have to download or they stream it to you. Or you know, if it's through a browser, you all start watching it when your browser loads that, which means you're not synchronized. It's on your own local device. They're not streaming through the platform. Where in Big Screen, you're actually screen sharing. So your computer is streaming your screen to them. And that's why Big Screen will have a gauge. When you host a room, when you decide how many people you want to host, it gives you a warning on how many people you're streaming to and what it's measuring your bandwidth is. And it will tell you that at 8 or 10, you're going to have issues because your internet is not fast enough. And so you should make it lower or just accept that risk. So the method that they use is very different. And it's just one of those things, I think, to reference the talk that you were hosting the other day, Sylvia, you know, one of the panelists acknowledged that the internet is just not very well designed for this type of data transfer. The rates and the amount and the speed that it requires. So a lot of these VR event platforms are still going to be constrained until we have some type of infrastructural investment like 5G, which just enhances how much we can, how quickly and effectively we can communicate between computers. Has anyone else tried AltSpace or tried another platform in kind of an education or knowledge transfer? Julie? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was in Laval Virtual and I did a panel as well as my own talk, and it was really easy to do screen share. And I'm really not very technologically savvy at all, but it wasn't a problem. And also, but it was a problem to have video. The platform Virbela could not support video, but we had up to 100 people in the room during the talk, and there were 6,600 people that attended Laval. And I think that there really weren't that many problems overall. So I was very impressed with Virbela.
Yeah.
Can I ask, did you give the presentation on a desktop or in the VR headset?
No, desktop. So they preferred, even though it has VR, they preferred that people did use a desktop. But, you know, for me, I was thinking that if you really want accessibility, a lot of people can't get headsets now. They're sold out, you know. So if you're doing some sort of a large conference or festival, the majority of people won't have access to a headset unless they're specifically in the XR industry.
Yeah, but I think that's...
I was very appreciative of the fact that just anybody could get onto their computer, go to a URL, and smoothly maneuver around this world and attend these lectures. I thought that was pretty interesting.
And that's
more like a 3D version of Zoom rather than social VR, right?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking it's almost the same as Zoom, but just instead of seeing you guys like this, I see actually there's some spatial information as well. That's interesting.
That's the discussion. You know, the distinction between virtual reality and virtual world, which in academia, depending on the discipline that's the paper's written in, those terms may get used, you know, somewhat interchangeably. But I think Virbela and Laval Virtual, maybe specifically as an event, has kind of brought this up again. If we're talking about social VR, we're talking about virtual reality. We're almost shouldn't be considering Virbela because Virbela is a virtual world platform, which is Fortnite as well. You know, these are worlds where they are three-dimensional and you have avatars, but you're not. And it's not to get into the immersion discussion per se, but it's a different type of immersion. And technically, the frame rates are much lower. So it's so much easier to translate data. You can tolerate latency in those types of environments much better than you could ever do in a virtual reality platform. So I think, Julie, to your point, you just kind of sum up everything, which is that social VR, like VR with headsets, probably is not appropriate for a large-scale event, no matter what platform. There isn't a platform that can do that right now. You have to do a virtual world thing like Virbela. Has anyone been working?
Well,
yours.
Can I comment as well?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Hey guys, this is Alina. In case you don't recognize me, and
I was going to ask you who you were. We just see SS.
Because I just wanted to bring a little bit of fun to our Friday meetings. I was early on experimenting today with the flip side, which had actually an update today launched, where they now allow to integrate your flip side stream into any video conferencing thing. So that's why I'm right now in my headset in the flip side, and I'm talking to you in the Zoom as an avatar, which I think is a really kind of funny thing to do. But I just wanted to get your feedback. But before that, I wanted also to comment a little bit on the Virbela social worlds versus social kind of VR experience conversation, because I think that actually if you experience really valuable communication, even inside Virbela, it makes absolutely total sense why any 3D environment provides more opportunities for socializing like in real life. Because basically in Virbela, though, the graphics is not up to date and the interaction is very limited just because everything is so small, like you don't have your hands, it's only PC based and stuff like that. But at the same time, it allows you to randomly have conversations with people that happen to sit next to you at the conference. Or and I was also moderating a panel where we were together with Andre. And for me, I think I shared it a little bit. For me, the most fascinating part was when actually the panel ended and we came down from the stage as speakers. And then we ended up talking for another 35 minutes or so with the speakers and with the audience. And it was exactly like at the regular event where you ended the conversation and you get stuck talking to panelists because you just were enjoying the conversation so much for another half an hour. And it was a social interaction that was completely felt very natural. Like you couldn't leave this virtual space, though I was also present there from just the screen of my PC laptop. So that was quite interesting for me from the Virbela side. So it still makes sense.
Yeah. Can I add something here? Like, because you brought up this question regarding what is the difference between virtual world and virtual reality, which is absolutely valid, but we need to distinguish the way to store and present information in a spatial way, which is virtual world, and way to access this information via headset or via flat screen. And those are, and here you can draw a very distinctive line. Because it's definitely way more interesting to present spatial information in spatial format, because it's not a projection or shade or representation of the spatial information on the 2D in two-dimensional surface, like you would do drawing of the house, right? The drawing is two-dimensional and the house is three-dimensional, and it's easy to perceive the house being in a three-dimensional world. But then how you perceive it, whether it's you go through the screen and screen becomes a window into this world. And then you have all the hassle of interacting with this window. And basically it's, if we go back to the history of interfaces, we started the computer interface. Well, I don't go into perfect cards, but with the keyboard, then we got mouse, which, and Windows, and then the next step was touch. When you basically you exclude mouse and you start touching in the face. So the evolution of interface itself becoming a spatial, and now as more information we absorb and accumulate, there is no way to like present this information other than in a spatial way, or you can abstract this information and nail it down to the text, which is conceptual. Well, okay, I probably went too far here, but the point is that virtual reality is the interface to access to the spatial information. That's and this is the distinguishing point, because you facilitate, and as much as more we create those spatial information accessible with digital tools, the more need for virtual reality as an interface for the human will evolve.
Mm-hmm. And I think that there's one, when it comes to social interaction, there's one vital point, because that's the one point that makes this interaction not as immersive, or the difference between the social VR and watching it three-dimensionally and having a Zoom call like this is that we cannot really look at each other. So our brains constantly have to calculate. There's no one I can look at directly. And there's a lot of, that's I think one of the most vital mechanisms in communication. If you speak to a group, if we would be all in one room, I could actually really see who's looking at me. And here I can probably guess, but you're looking at the camera, you're not really looking at me. And there's probably also ways to display that information with AI in the future on a 2D screen, but that's the leap that we have with watching it in a virtual world, is that we can basically react to each other. But if we have a platform like Verbela, it's already in a way possible, because you can have the sort of the thing that's ephemeral about social interaction is you stand there, or you walk towards someone, and that already works, even if you only watch it in 2D. And there's a lot of information that we basically have in that way. And the funny thing is that it actually gets into your head like a real conversation.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You know, maybe I can add also something.
Tim, hold on.
No, unless somebody else wants to talk.
Joris was waiting for a while.
I was just curious about your question, because it seems, I think it's an interesting question to say which user case and which platform for you aligned the best. And we every time end up talking about different user cases needing to be squeezed into one platform. So it's just interesting that we try to compare platforms for their pros and cons, but at the same time also have different agendas and different goals. So accessibility is a completely different goal than having an embodied social experience. And so I think also with the Verbela, for example, I thought I was moderating also a 4-hour session looking at, we had 200 people in the room, and apparently Verbela then makes every single avatar a colored outline. So basically I was looking at 200 pieces of confetti with no feedback whatsoever. I had no clue whether people were listening, responding. So I was asking for confirmation through the chat a lot, like, can you please cheer or ask a question, just to make sure that we were still connected. And on top of that, the Verbela interface on the desktop was a third-person perspective. I was looking at my avatar, floating behind the avatar. So I thought it was a very disembodied experience. We did a performance experiment on Thursday that had to deal with physical interactions within Verbela, questioning that through theater improvisation techniques. And I noticed that people were standing through each other and were not really aware of where they were in the space because of this third-person perspective. The only moment you had a first-person perspective is either when you put a VR goggles on, that was very buggy and not implemented well, or you would sit at a table, because then suddenly you had a first-person perspective. So there's a lot to these platforms, accessibility, but also embodied interactions that have so many different reasons and agendas. And I feel that there's not a single platform. I've seen quite some. Well, there's one platform, but we can get into that in 2 weeks or so. But I think there's not a lot of platforms that will offer an answer to everything. So I'm now starting to get curious, can you do hybrid spaces? So what I mean by that is that maybe some people are fully engaged in an embodied way. Maybe some people can actually interact with that situation, but in a more like indirect way. And maybe there's a larger crowd that just follows it on a screen. And maybe some of those people who followed it on a screen want to have a chat function, so they do it in big screen. So I start to feel more and more that maybe we should also think about combining different platforms for their affordances in sort of more like a total experience, whereby basically the range of the degree in which you want to interact and be embodied is then also determining which platform, which entry to the experience you choose. But this is just a thought. But I'm not sure if that answers your question, but might be another angle to the discussion, that we don't start comparing in the hope that we will find the perfect platform, because it doesn't seem to exist as of yet.
Yeah. Thank you, Joris. Actually, so if I could, we want to kind of wrap up in a few more minutes so that we can get to Tim and we can get to Lance and their presentations. But I would like to kind of bring it back to that original question of, in your opinion, a use case and a platform that that match up. You know, so we've kind of hit on a couple: Altspace for events, maybe lectures in the educational context; Verbella for large-scale mass events where you're looking for many hundreds of people to have a spatial arrangement and stuff. So at this point, I'd like to then maybe just go one by one, if no one minds being put on the spot, you know, and sharing either a good fit or a bad fit, something that they have seen and they just feel like that didn't work. The platform and how it was used just didn't work for one reason. Sylvia, you've already given your answer with Altspace, so let me jump on. Lance, I'm going to go on my screen, so it may not be the way yours looks. Saher, I would like to ask you if you have a use case for some of these multi-user platforms that you think really worked. So, for example, did you see someone organize an event, a social event, a multi-user event, and it just really worked? And what was the platform? Or it didn't work because you feel like the platform wasn't a good fit. So, yeah.
Actually, I haven't yet, but I will in 2 weeks in Altspace. I'm going to present my, that Rainbow Bridge with my team in Bilgi University. So I'm going to test it. I haven't been in Rec Room for 2 weeks. I haven't got into any meetings there, but Altspace, I have been once, but there wasn't any presentation or meeting, just gathering around. Mm-hmm. But I will, so I can tell them.
Okay, you can confirm whether that's a good fit. Okay.
Yeah.
May I say to the Altspace, I have been in some kind, when COVID started, I was in some kind of a global information meeting, like what's happening with COVID and where viruses, medical informations. And for me, it was kind of weird. Like they had a big room, like a square, and there were like several avatars inside, and they put just like internet browsers with different sources, different on the wall. So we could go as an avatar to this wall, and we could look, but it was terrible to read. It was terrible to read in there. So I was like, okay, so what I actually do, I have a list of this, what is here? No, you didn't. And it was, so somehow you had to handwrite down next to the computer what you see there and what is on the browser. And I was like, that's not convenient. So I actually didn't like how this event was presented and how the information was transmitted.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned we may be having to write down that information to follow up with it later. You know, note taking is the big component missing from VR experiences, the ability to take notes. There's a couple, like Meet in VR has some functionality to allow you to take notes through voice, through speech to text pretty quickly. But you know, very few platforms are implementing some type of note taking, and maybe speech to text is not. Also, maybe that's not the best way. Maybe there's a tactile sensation. Maybe there's how do you jot down? How do you take a diagram as a note, for example? So there's definitely some things missing from knowledge transfer like that. Isabel, would you have such a use case and platform match that you could share, either good or bad match? Maybe I have the Isabel. Are you there? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just had a question as well over here. You were talking about Virbella or Altspace?
Well, we were just talking about a use case that you have observed and a platform, and whether it was a good match or a bad match.
Well, I've had the experience with Engage for the XR Base investor event, and Laval Virtual were also moderated. And I must say both were really interesting, each in their own way, because it was a different use case, in my opinion. What I liked about Engage was that you could put your face on the avatar, which made that, it was really more personal. As well that you could put together you could choose whether to listen to the crowd or mute them, which was easier, as well to, let's say, control the people listening to your conversation, to your conference and so on. And as well the possibilities to include everything. Compared to Vibella, which I also loved, where indeed you have the third person kind of perspective, I was, however, quite surprised by all the possibilities, because, as mentioned before, we did meet people like we would meet at any conference, but there it was more difficult to have, let's say, to moderate, because you couldn't, let's say, keep people at a certain distance behind the camera, which was also in each room, to make sure that it could be streamed to YouTube. Next to that, indeed, you don't have the facial interaction as you have with Engage, so to say, but for a big crowd, I think it was really interesting to see what was possible to entertain. We used Crankwheel to upload, in fact, the presentations and videos. The streaming of video was not so good. For presentation was no problem. And you could also like zoom in on the presentation, although you were seated. So let's say I go to one of the conferences in the big room, then you could just click the button and then you had the screen in front of you. So it was easier to see. So that was quite interesting. And of course, even the parties we had afterwards were really nice, quite realistic, and really nice to meet some people as well over there. I think that as Joris told, at this point we have several platforms with each their own possibilities, but in times we'll get more to something hybrid, where we can combine, or maybe even have a menu like, okay, I have this kind, so these features are important for me, so let's put something together based on our choices. And what was something that popped up for me immediately was, why do I have to change an avatar for each and every platform all the time? I just want one avatar, just me, and I can use it everywhere. Let's say by time that you could even have like photogrammetry or whatsoever, you just upload your avatar and you can use it in every kind of world or whatsoever. That would be so much more interesting. So that was a small takeaway. Yeah. Sorry that it was a bit...
That would also require all the worlds to be standardized, aesthetically as well as technically. And I wonder if you would create maybe ecosystems around use cases where different platforms would just kind of agree that we share a community, we share an audience, a user base, and that we would then want to work together to allow a standardized avatar. I mean, because just going from example Altspace to Rec Room to Engage, the avatars are also different, but they're also kind of different use cases. You know, different types of content that they want to feature. So I think that's always the question with the avatars is if it was standardized, do we really want standardized avatars, or do we just want one platform where we could do those things when that's the way we look?
No, but just that you can choose, like, for instance, if I have the possibility, I can choose whatever I want as an avatar, but I can use this one everywhere, let's say. If I want to have like a look like I don't know, a banana or whatsoever, or a tree, I can be that one, but I don't have to adapt it to every other platform. What I just wanted to say, because this morning I had the news that I don't know if it will affect us a lot, but in Poland, the Prime Minister signed a decree that to make sure to avoid 5G in the future worldwide, that everyone had to back out. So I don't know what that means for the future, but I do hope that we can continue to move to 5G, because that would mean a big change as well for virtual worlds and everything, and headsets.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we actually are getting a little low on time, so let's go ahead and go.
Sorry.
No, it's not you. It's we've all had a lot of different things to share, but let's get on to Lance and Tim. Lance, I'd like you to go first, since Tim, if you go second, then we'll go directly into Mozilla, and maybe that's easier to transition that way. So, Lance, if you're ready, could you please tell us?
Yeah, no problem. I'll be pretty quick. I did want to respond to that last point about avatars.
Okay.
Because I've been in social VR for a while, and when Altspace was dead before it was rescued by Microsoft, I found a lot of Altspace avatars inside of VR chat, which was very disconcerting. So like I'm all in favor of like each avatar and its aesthetic belonging to its place. Anyway. So I wanted to do a quick recap of our visit to the Clubhouse, and also address like what is happening in Rec Room, because people they have this first impression of what the platform is, but actually they're very often discussing what the platform was like, but haven't like updated their priors, because it is a larger beast at the moment. So if I can share my screen for just one moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll have I made this little graphic of use cases, and if you'll notice that it is linear, because Rec Room, just like Altspace, was released in 2016, and Rec Room began its life as a gaming platform. So it was like just for that. Like they had paintball, they had dodgeball, a few other sports, and that was it. But over time, it evolved into other use cases, which included the social. They had events, but not user-generated events, but they were like theater space. They would open a theater space, so you could go see a public performance. It wasn't that big, but over time they had the events button, so anybody could have an event at any time. They have creation tools that allow for education, and then finally collaboration. So you see use cases to the left, and then on the right, how they did it. And a lot of these have come very recently, actually. So clubs and meetups are both things that have happened this year. So there's currently a very big push towards a collaboration. So they're working to overcome a lot of the negative narrative and experiences that some people have had, especially older people have had, because they go into Rec Room blindly and expect that they'll know immediately what to do. But it does take time to understand what you want to do on your own. But now that we have clubs and clubhouses, you can circumvent all of that and just go there immediately for whatever purpose you have. Like, so if you are part of a creative group or an educators group, you can go to that club. So there's a big push in that direction. And to the right, we see content creation. So their content creation tools are ever expanding, and it is feeding every single use case. So just a few days ago, they introduced their first step towards having AI inside of the user-generated rooms. So at the moment, it's rudimentary, like just having creatures follow you within that room. But they're going to expand, and they laid out in their own website 4 phases of AI release. So how it's used is growing, and it's a very good time to get into it if you weren't in love with the platform before. Yes.
Lance, I'm sorry, Lance. It's Letitia from Switzerland, Geneva.
Yeah, no problem.
We don't see your slide, the entire slide. We only see like half of it. I'm not sure. Right? Yeah, I'm not sure if everyone sees the same, but I don't see the entire slide.
I will upload the graphic into the chat.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
So it should be no problem. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing anyway. So since it has an expanding number of use cases over time, and the same tools enabling those use cases, there is a lot of overlap sometimes. So it takes some knowledge of the platform to compartmentalize those activities. So just in case you don't know, I built a clubhouse for XR Crowd so that everyone here can join, and they can use that space as their default space. They never have to go out into the general Rec Room area. So if your only interest is being part of this club, then you can do that. So at first in the clubhouse, I allowed everyone to have the creation tools so that you can practice making your own things within the clubhouse. But that was almost immediately abused. So I understood that I have to take those powers away. But when we visit today, I'll show you how to do that on your own. So through segmenting public and private spaces and showing the basics of some creation tools. So everybody gets what they want in the end. Did you have any questions about it? Did anybody have questions?
Do we have ink? Enough ink, friends?
So within the clubhouse, nobody can make anything now. So you don't have access to the creation tools. But the room is copyable, so you can go to a copied version and then create things. So you can delete and add things at will because it's actually your space. So I will show this a bit later. Like when we go to the platform, I'll show exactly how to do that. It's quite simple if someone shows you how to do it. So.
Thank you.
I just have a question because last week I tried to go into Rec Room to my PC, but I didn't manage to enter. So I'm going in there later on with my Quest. Is it different?
It shouldn't be different, but just like last time, I will leave my username and a code so that yeah, I'm just adding the.
I was in front of the door, but I couldn't open the door. That was the problem. I was in the space just in front of the Rec Room, the clubhouse.
Okay. Oh, that's something we
can.
Last time was.
Oh, yeah.
There was an issue with the button, with the enter button.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. I allowed the power of flight now, so everybody can fly. So if you can't use the button, it's no problem. So you can just fly over there. It'll be okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Thank you, Lance. We're looking forward to that. So that'll be about 6:45, but you're welcome to go in a little bit earlier. But we want to make sure everyone has enough time to work out in Mozilla Hubs. So Tim, if you're ready to show us what's going to happen there.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, thanks to all of you guys on one side for the talk right now. That was quite interesting. And also, Lance, thanks for pulling up that house again, that clubhouse. That was ruined last time, but that was quite fun. I also think that Rec Room is actually quite a great platform, not only for the fun you can have there, but also the way it is really being done with the UI interface and things like this. But yeah, today I wanted to talk about something else to you guys, because I've been using Mozilla Hub quite a bit in the last couple of months for myself, because I was, working with different VR platforms, and I checked it out. So I wanted to share actually the experience that I had with this. And let me share the screen with you, and then I can show you something. So basically, first, maybe I tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from, because I have a studio where we do, augmented and virtual reality or XR projects. And within that work of my studio, I was since a long time thinking about what way could there be to easily get into VR, to share content, to work on projects, to get clients to discuss things, all those great things. And I can see that we are just on the verge where that gets really accessible and easy. And Mozilla Hubs, I think, is one of the main platforms that provides the tools, to make that happen. And I basically went into Mozilla Hubs and got my own server going from there, which is xrmeeting.net. And that was not too hard to do. And that itself is quite exciting. So if let's see, that is just, to give you another idea what I'm doing right now. We're working on some stuff with Mindwave readings, on XR experiences, on some artistic projects. And all those things are, always about collaboration with other people that are somewhere in the world. And Mozilla Hubs is just the tool to do exactly that. And if you're looking at Mozilla Hubs, you might ask yourself, would that be a good platform for me? Because we have been seeing a lot of, a lot of different, basically big platforms like Engage or even Rec Room or Altspace. All those are quite advanced in terms of usage. And on the first sight, you might think something like Mozilla Hub is pretty simple from the graphics and what can you really do with it. But once you start to dive into it, you can basically recognize that a lot of the functionalities that the big platforms are doing are already there, and that it's quite creative the way they put it up, and the way you can use the tools, and the way you can create rooms. So as a basic decision, if you're thinking about pulling up your own VR platform or using any of the established platforms, I think it's kind of important to ask yourself, do you need any scripting, any interaction really within the work that you're presenting? Because in the moment where you need that, in the moment where you want to be more like in a game-like environment, then you need to be either, like in Unity, building your own apps, or you need to use maybe some of the more advanced apps. But if you're just going for pulling up a 3D space, for sharing content, for meeting people, and already having some interaction, like moving 3D objects, spawning things, drawing things, then Mozilla Hubs is just a great place to be, because it can do all of that with very little effort. And the other criteria is, of course, how many people would you like to invite into your experience? And Mozilla Hub is really you come to that limit of 25 people in a room, and maybe even sometimes less because of the performance of the devices. But that is a limit that you can also meet in a lot of the established platforms. I think it's a basic technology underneath. When you go to more than 25 people, you really need big infrastructure, and it needs to be managed in a different way. So if you're going for a big conference, Mozilla Hub probably wouldn't be the space to do something like that in. But if you're looking for like a smaller kind of like size of events where you want to share your content with people, 2 people up to 25 people maybe, then it's a great space, because you can do it and you can basically just create it very easily. So if that's what you're looking for, then of course there's a question, what can you do with a platform like Mozilla Hubs? And I think even in the discussion right now that we had, there was something quite important that was kind of like standing in the room, and that was the desire of people to create these hybrid spaces. And hybrid spaces in the sense of like different VR spaces, maybe different VR platforms that are connected to each other. And at the core, this is exactly what Mozilla is trying to do here. They're trying to create the metaverse, which is basically a 3D version of the internet, where you have different 3D spaces, virtual spaces, and you can have a hyperlink from one space to the other, and you can jump into another space. And because they're following the strategy and they build it into the DNA of Mozilla Hubs, that means once you create a room, you can basically share it with other people and link up to other people, and you can build these endless rows of VR spaces that just keeps on expanding as you put up rooms. And a room can be, like based on 3D models, but it can also be based on a 360 movie where you're just inside of the movie looking at the movie. And then maybe the next room is like some, meeting room where you just have some talks. So it's actually quite interesting how they're approaching that whole idea of the metaverse. And underneath that whole idea lies of like from the technological side, there's WebXR, which is this like very nice standard that's being developed right now. And if you look at the different platforms, I think for me personally, it's partly a question if you're going to have some big platforms that establish themselves and they make their own ecosystem that is going to be like a closed system, or if you have something like Mozilla Hub is doing it right now, where it's really open source and it's shared and people can easily pick it up and do it, and communicate. And I think in Germany, for example, in schools and education, schools probably going to start to pull up their own Mozilla Hubs, for classes to meet in, for have discussions, with other schools or things like that. So there's a lot of opportunities, and there's like another kind of like really big advantage when you're using something like Mozilla Hubs. The community of Mozilla Hubs and also the creators that are behind it, the programmers, they are quite active, so they're continuously pushing the boundaries and developing new functionalities and kind of like spreading the word. And if you're working with that and you have a problem, you can just move into your chat, and there's a lot of people that are willing to help and give you advice on how to handle little things and how to basically work around things. So these things I said earlier, like for example, scripting, something like that, getting more interactivity into something like a hub, that is going to be something that's going to be solved in the future. They're already working on it, and there's people programming and experimenting with this. So it's just kind of like a matter of time that evolves more. And most of the platforms that I have seen don't do much more than Mozilla Hub does. And that is another thing I found quite interesting. I think probably with the basic functions that Mozilla Hubs offered, it covers 95% of what other platforms do as well. And then those last 5%, it's really when you're pushing it and you're creating your own apps and your own environments and you're publishing it in a big scale, But besides that, they're just doing that. And so that is kind of like saying hello to the metaverse as I'm writing it here. It's basically the starting point for creating a really growing online VR network that can be accessed from any device, because that is the second thing they're doing. They really try to go cross-platform. So it doesn't matter if you have the mobile phone, the desktop, the VR glasses. You can normally access with all of those devices into the hub space. So they really try to kind of like take those basic problems that are all of the platforms are. It's always about, can you access it from different devices? How easily can you share a platform? Do you need to install something? They're basically tackling those basic problems, and they're already pretty good. I mean, obviously, you still run into issues when you share it and when you do it, but that's just normal, you know, with anything you're doing. Then there's a second point, and as I told you before, I hosted my own server because I wanted to have my own kind of like virtual reality development space where I can just play around with, create rooms, share rooms, invite people, and really also just experiment, have fun, you know, like have a big sandbox inside of the web that is in virtual reality. And launching a server from Mozilla Hubs, I mean, I'm coming more from the kind of like creative direction side, so I'm not really kind of a hardcore programmer, and I could do it. You know, that's a good message, you know, because if I can do it, it takes like 5 hours, maybe a little bit reading tutorials, and boom, you got your own server running on the net, being able to create VR spaces. I mean, that is something, and it, you know, it doesn't really cost a lot. It's like running on Amazon servers, so there's some fees that are happening because of the traffic you're doing. But even on that end, Mozilla has this whole strategy of making it as simple and cost efficient as they can. So there's like certain techniques of putting the content on other servers, and this way, you know, costs go down. And that means if you're thinking about, should I now like sign into a big platform, pay monthly fees, or should I put up my own server for probably the same fees? It's kind of like, you know, for me, the decision was clear, you know, let's do my own server and get out there and be part of the metaverse, you know. So it's kind of like really, really nice that they do it this way. And here it's the same, you know, the kind of like the hubs that is running there now on the server that I pulled up, that is also being updated from Mozilla itself, you know. So when they do improvements in Mozilla Hub, it automatically gets synchronized into the servers that I'm running. And this means new functionalities pop up as they are being done. And then there's yet another level to it, and that's also another level why I went for the whole idea of creating my own server. If you do know coding, then you can really custom make it. You know, I mean, you can just build on top of the code of Mozilla and extend on it. And that means, you know, like things like A-Frame, 3GS, those are kind of like the tools out there right now for creating web VR, and they give you the possibility to have a really great platform that already has a lot of functionalities, and then just do your stuff on top of it, you know, which is something that is quite nice for people that know how to program and that know how to kind of like code things, because it means you can extend it into any direction. So all of that being said, of course, one of the main points is that point whole share a link, call up a website, and then tune into the metaverse. It's that simple, you know, and that's what they wanted to do. And that is a big advantage, again, because we've been creating apps both for like artistic projects and also for, you know, for commercial clients. And the issue is always you got to download it and install it. And that is just a big step, you know, like in virtual reality and also in augmented reality. So like, for me personally, I'm really waiting like with desire. I'm like, oh my God, guys, when is it going to be web XR? You know, when is it going to be web VR? When is it going to be web augmented reality, where you just share links? Because it's in the moment where that is possible, where you can easily share content by sending a link, that is when you are like at a point where you can really reproduce and share experiences. That is the whole, like, if it's as easy as going onto WhatsApp and say, here is a link for you, check it out, and you can get into a VR experience, or you can get into augmented reality experience, then that takes the whole thing a big step forward, you know. That's why I think that whole idea of web XR, which is materialized in a project like Mozilla Hubs, is such a promising and important step for the entire, you know, XR community. And they're just kind of like supporting it and building the tools for people like me that love that stuff, that love to create things and also share them and work with them, but maybe they don't have the hardcore coding. I mean, obviously I work with people that do programming on my projects, but those guys are the ones that kind of like really create the underlying, let's say, the underlying mathematics of how it works. So this is like a little example. Maybe you guys saw it. I took it from the Mozilla Hubs page, but I just wanted to give you a small and quick overview of some of the things you can do. And you can already see it in this little picture here. There's like these 10 points. There's a media button that gives you possibilities to control the scene, the names, what the scene can do, what people can do inside of it. Then you have screen and camera sharing. That means you can stream from your computer. And in the moment where you're streaming from your computer, whatever you do on your computer is going to be in the Mozilla Hub. It can be a video conference. It can be a presentation you prepared. It can be files, pictures, documents, anything you do on your computer, you can do inside of the Mozilla Hub in this way. So that is kind of like really great because it's a door into your own computer world, so to say, that you can use in collaboration. Then, of course, there's the famous mute, shut up kind of thing, which is very important because there's audio chaos, as we all experienced in VR spaces. And you have, of course, the share button, which just gives you the possibility to create a link and send it out in the world to get people in. And then they have something really nice because earlier there was the whole thing, like, would you have a pencil, for example? And they do have a pencil, and that little pencil that they created in Mozilla Apps is a great tool because it not only gives you the possibility to draw in 3D space, also with different settings, you can draw on objects in the 3D space, or you can use it as a laser pointer. You can transfer the object that you draw into OBJ, like into a 3D objects, and then download it as a GLB file to your computer. So it's kind of like you can just do little artworks or prototypes, or during meetings, comment and keep them. And then there's actually...
I'm sorry, is it possible that we can go ahead and go into Mozilla Hubs? Could we continue some of this there?
Exactly, yeah, that would be exactly the thing. That's why I wanted to get into the kind of like hands-on session.
Okay.
Just wanted to mention these points for the people that maybe cannot join into the actual kind of live experience. And especially that point with the pencil, and the second point with the notes. In Mozilla Hubs, you can actually take notes. You can type into the chat a message and then create it as a note that appears in the room. And at the very beginning of our talk, we talked about rooms being permanent, and they are actually permanent. So when you leave a note or objects in a room and you created it, you can pin them, and then they stay there forever. So when you come back weeks later, the same setup that you created is still there. So that is another thing. So before we go there, I just show you like 4 use cases that I'm doing right now in Hubs and that we're going to walk through in when we go into the Mozilla Hub. The first one, this is kind of like a VR meeting room that I'm just developing for clients of mine. And we are just running beta tests where we have different people from the company joining into this room, and we see how well does it work actually. Joining in, how you present stuff in a 3D space, what happens with the technology, all those questions are actually taking place right now in this room. And that's quite interesting to know even, like what problems do you run in when you do it in real life with kind of like it's a big company, so there are firewalls and all that stuff that you suddenly need to consider when you share content. Then this is like something I did actually with Yuli together. And so like a little virtual gallery, so it's an easy way of sharing your artwork, your pictures, your sculptures, and inviting people to see it, and to basically present what you're doing, to showcase different works. So that is another use case that can be really easily realized in something like Mozilla Hubs. Then this one here is of my project Loving Ones, which is originally an augmented reality project, but we are taking it into VR right now. And we're using Mozilla Hub as a development space. So the space, the 3D tunnel that is behind there is a really rough model right now, a prototype of the 3D space we're going to use for this project. And we're meeting in there with a 3D modeler and, with a programmer to talk about how we set up the actual VR experience. And those guys are sitting on different spots in the world, so it's really nice to have that kind of like interactive development space that you can pull up for your own projects. Yeah, and this is a third project. It's Trompadou, like a kids game world that I'm working on. And it was also here very interesting to see, how can I just pull up some 3D assets into a hub's world and share it and play with it. And that is then something we can try out when we are there later on, what you can do in a world like this. So this basically sums up what I'm doing right now, or what you can do with hubs in general, if you like interested and if you want to use that kind of technology. And I would say I can share a link in the WhatsApp group, and you guys can just follow that link, and then we can move into the actual hub and continue our conversation there.
All right, yours,
Tim.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Tim, for showing us this. I'm very happy that you're rekindling the necessity to look at Mozilla hubs. I think you're very right that the philosophy behind an open source platform is very important in these times, where not companies own virtual property, but we create a public domain in which we can share. So thanks for bringing that in our attention. If I may, I'd like to add also that on top of all of this, they're also sharing a whole editor where you can build these worlds in your browser, and it's called Spoke. And I think it's very important to mention, because I hardly know any other, like Engage, Altspace. I mean, they make these making worlds not easy. Engage actually asks money for it. For Bella, you cannot even change. Altspace, you have to go through Unity and SDKs. This is just a website where you can build your world. You press publish, and it's online, and you press share, and you're in it together. So I have not seen any workflow being so incredibly accessible. So not to in any way, it's important that all the steps you explained, Tim, but I think this extra feature is just amazing, also for students and people to work together.
I mean, thanks for pointing that out, Juris. Both, like the open source thought and what is the actual current state of things in the internet, which is being like, it's a different state than it was when the internet was originally created. It was very open source and based on different computers connecting. And currently we are in a time where there's really big platforms and monopoles, and there's both good and bad to that. I mean, it's good because they're supplying a lot of great technology and a lot of possibilities, but it's bad because it can be quite limiting for the free flow of information and people doing their own thing. And Mozilla is doing that. And the second point you just mentioned, of course, Spoke, kind of like their online. I use it actually all the time when I'm in hubs, and that is exactly the thing, that you can create your own scenes. And it's made, it's a very simple kind of like 3D editor that you can use to do that. So that is for people, even without any skills and kind of like 3D modeling, you can already set up things. And then they have that tool set up to, like Blender and to Google Poly, to Sketchfab, so you have huge 3D libraries that are attached to that you can integrate in your scenes that you're creating in Spoke. So it's quite, it's actually quite powerful tool for that. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Yes, Andrzej.
Huh? Yeah, because the reference to the early days of internet is very relevant here. But imagine the complexity. And Tim, is it possible to remove the screen sharing?
Yes, of course. Wait 1 second. Let me do that.
Because basically, what was internet at the very early days, and Bob Cooney recently mentioned that it's a Web 1.0 when you just take all your books and put it online as a text, and that was the first step of the internet. I think it was before even HTML. But HTML then created the hyperlinks of the text, based on which actually the entire infrastructure and what we have now, it's based on that concept of hyperconnected documents. While now we're approaching the three-dimensional, but the same concept of three-dimensional spaces, also hyper-connected. And this is exactly the point where Mozilla Hubs comes very handy, because you can easily create those different structures. But the point that I'm actually concerned more is like the number of. So if you look into, I'm not sure if you can see my screen. Yeah, it's kind of prison, or I don't know. It doesn't matter. So basically, we all can write, but very few of us can code, which required to create a web page. And this is exactly the point from Julie Walsh, was like, what is scripting? Like, yeah, I don't script myself. But when it comes to the spaces and connected spaces, it's just another level of complexity, how you link the information in the spatial interaction and include spatial interactions. I don't know if it does make sense, but for the end user, why the use case is so important, because you can experiment, and Mozilla Hubs is a perfect sandbox to experiment with those spaces. But when it comes to the user adoption or end user utilization, it just should solve a problem, and the problem should be very specific.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very true what you are saying, but this is also that's one of the things where Mozilla Hubs is strong, actually, that you don't really need coding, to do already a lot of things. And I think they are solving they're solving a couple of problems, actually. One of them they're solving is cross-platform. That they're certainly going for that, and they're doing a pretty good job at it. Another problem they're solving is accessible, easy creation of 3D spaces, social VR for everyone. This is it, They're basically defining themselves as a communication platform, So if you want to communicate and meet with others in VR, you can do it, you know what I mean? And that is, I think, what they're really bringing to the table. And of course, the other thing, as you said, it's linking up virtual spaces that are being created, So creating a metaverse, you need tools like that, basically. And it's easier than HTML, what they're doing. You don't even need to know that. It's kind of like, but on the other side, like you said, I mean, as soon as you get into more, if you get into more complex things, then it's another story. And there's a lot of things that big platforms have to offer that are great. I mean, we're just working on one project where we're using Watson, and we're sending from the VR voice recognition to our IPM, artificial intelligence, analyze the sound, get it back, and then control what's happening in the app. I mean, there's great stuff that's happening that can only happen because there's these big, huge companies that are putting up an infrastructure that you can access. I mean, even also Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they're offering tools that are really powerful that you would normally have only access to if you have $1 billion company. But for that, then of course, you need to get more into the things of how to do it. I mean, it gets complicated.
I can take my questions offline.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move over to Mozilla, so we can sink our teeth into what we've been talking about. And I think we can continue to have those questions in Mozilla Hubs. I don't think we don't have to drop the Zoom.
Tim, very short. Tim, do you recommend glasses or browser? Because last time we were I was last time in browser.
I mean, I would normally use the VR glasses if you have them, because it's always that is the moment where you really get the spatial experience, and in a way that is, I think, a big part what VR is all about. Yeah. So let me share that in the Zero Crowd event. I can just share the link to the hub, And if you like entering on like a standalone, like a Oculus, then you can also have a code here. Yeah.
And Tim, this works with 3D headsets and the Quest.
Yes, normally, I mean, it works with HTC, it works with Oculus Quest, it works also with, the Oculus Rift. And I didn't try other headsets yet, but it also works from the desktop. And we also had people log in with Macs, and we also had people log in with tablets or phones,
Yeah.
So,
all right. So you work with 3D web devices like the Go, for example.
Well, I did use the Go before actually, and it did work. They have Firefox Reality, which is their 3D browser from Mozilla. And but of course, when you're using something like Oculus Go, you get to the limits of the hardware.
Yeah, of course.
There's clear things, and some of the things we just uploaded into hubs are more like high poly, so it can be that it crashes right now when we go all in there.
Okay. Well, let's
see.
Let's jump
exactly.
in and see.
Totally. I mean, I'm gonna, I need to anyway also get my VR going. So I see you guys soon.
So we're going to go into Mozilla Hubs in just a moment for those who want to continue either on their desktop or with their headset. So we're just waiting for that specific link. He's going to open it, and then he's going to share the link with us.
We needed a code for the Quest as well.
Oh, you need the link. So if you're going to
the link is already shared in the Zero Event WhatsApp.
Oh, it's in the WhatsApp.
He didn't post it in our chat, but it's in the Zero Event WhatsApp group if you want to go there.
Okay. By the way, are we still using the Telegram? Because, I mean, some created it.
Yeah, so maybe Andre can talk about that if he's still here. From a Zero Event perspective.
Or later, I don't know, but it's just as becoming a bit like, what is it now? WhatsApp or Telegram?
Yeah, from a Zero Event perspective, all communication is only to the WhatsApp. Zero Event communication is not on Telegram, but other larger things might be.
Yeah, so if you're talking about the XR crowd communication,
in general,
it stays in WhatsApp because basically you can't communicate with 200 people in one group. But it's good to have, because we exceeded the number of people in one group, and we don't have one group where we have all community together on WhatsApp, and that would be impossible. We're just figuring out the way to have shoutouts channel where we can do announces that covers everyone. In one shot. But what we also saw, it's only 60 people probably joined the Telegram.
66 or something, and nothing is happening in there. So it's a bit.
Yeah, well.
How are you doing, man?
So I think we'll address this later over email.
Yeah.
Welcome to the little hub.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes, totally. I mean, it's like multi-channel personalities.
Tim, do you
Okay, we have a second. If there's anybody out there who has a friend who's doing anything in really interesting in medical or solutions, I'm looking for someone for our program. I do a live show on a live broadcast on LinkedIn Live. So it's COB. And we like to feature startups who are doing something really interesting in this space. So it can be anything that you find exciting. So
I'll send you a name, Catherine. I know.
DM me. I don't want to interrupt. I just want to throw that out there because there's so many smart people in the room. Thank you.
Check out Christopher Lafayette if you know him. He can help you as well.
Lafayette or Maillet?
Lafayette. He's He's in Silicon Valley.
I know him. Yeah, I know him.
Yeah.
Hello.
I didn't know he's doing anything with medtech. Is he really?
He can help you further.
Okay, thanks.
I'm leaving here, so I'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll leave it open, but generally we're all going to
the hubs.
Okay.
All right, that was really helpful, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye.
People, if you're still waiting in the lobby with Mozilla Hubs, you have to click on the button Enter Room. So it's great that you're waiting in the lobby, but you can actually enter yourself. So Tim is hoping that you do.
Actually, you know, that is a nice function too to you guys out there in the lobby, because you can actually join with a lot of people that are just in the lobby witnessing, seeing what happens within the 3D space. You know, we have been talking about that earlier, how you could stream maybe an experience to other people that are not in the 3D space. And that's how to solving that problem. You can have 25 in here, but you can have much more people outside.
Yeah.
Michael?
Michael is here.
Yeah, I'm here. Not on a headset at the moment.
Yeah, well, but nice to see you.
Yeah.
Nick, you're just taking your...
Actually, now you guys all have the same avatars, because I didn't really...
Mozilla.
Hi, Julie.
Request. Is it an app or is it over the browser?
Oh, there's a question about the Quest, Tim. Is it an app or is it over the browser?
No, it's
so you can
browser. You can
the link,
enter,
and then if you go in the browser, you click the link,
you know, like,
you will see a pop-up saying you want it to switch to
you can use the Oculus browser
VR mode
to get
and
into
then
here. So you just
turns
enter it
into
like a
VR
website
mode.
you're visiting.
Okay. So,
but in the Quest, is different.
Yeah, maybe we just start to show you guys a little bit what's happening here right now. And this is, like I said before, this is kind of like a commercial meeting room where we're testing right now how it is when you meet with clients and show them stuff. And we can do things here like if you guys turn around, there's a video screen up here. So yeah. I'm going to start that for you.
Maybe share the link in the chat so we can check it out as well.
Standard for industrial communication. But after 30 years, it's time for evolution. Instead of 4 pairs, only 1 pair is needed. The simple design...
It's actually mirrored, is it?
Yes, it's mirrored. I mean, that was kind of like the typical I did it too fast thing. Now somebody's controlling the player and keeps on playing it. It's great that you guys like it. It's really kind of like nice to see how easily you can bring videos into it.
But I don't know how to get the link from the Mac into the Quest.
So Martin, I think you actually have to type it in because you need to be in the browser in the Quest.
Okay.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay, then I will try.
So I put the link in here. It's a few. Yeah, it's only a few letters.
Okay, I will try.
And that is also kind of like where Mozilla is.
Michael, did you see my message to you?
Which one?
I need to leave soon to start prepping in NEOS, and I was curious if you still manage to be there in hour next.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. Look forward to it.
All right, see you there.
Great. You see, somebody discovered the library of Google, basically of Sketchfab or Google Poly that has objects.